Hey guys, OG Albina here, bringing you guys our Hoenn Khlazic Season 5 movie. Yes, we've done this a couple times on the channels before. This is a league run by my buddy Kaz, who's actually the podcast guest yesterday. Please go check out that podcast if you haven't already. Great pod. We talk about this league a lot in it, actually. It's Kaz's league. He runs it. It's a multi-gen league, which I always have a lot of fun doing once or twice a year with this. Essentially what we do is we draft a team from Gen 3, play Gen 3 draft, team from Gen 6, play Gen 6 draft, and a team from Gen 7, play Gen 7. It goes 1, 2, 3, then we reset over. So week 1 will be ADV, week 2 will be ORAS, week 3 will be USUM, etc. I think I had really fun teams in general, had some really fun games, so I wanted to show those off to you guys. If you guys do enjoy the Draft League movies in this video in particular, be sure to drop a like on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 10,000 subs by the end of the year. It is a very lofty goal, but I need your help in reaching it. That being said, really quickly, I am going to go over the teams we have just so you kind of know what we're rolling into, especially with ADV, right, this first one, because it's not team preview. So not always will all of my mons be sitting on the screen. I will preface this video as well with the fact that I don't have any of my builds from this season. And if I have any of them, it's like very few of them. For some reason, my computer does this thing where it just like wipes my teams every once in a while. And this league happened over the course of like, I think I played my last game like a month ago. So, I mean, started like 3-4 months ago. So, kind of wiped out all the teams, unfortunately. I remember most of what I brought and how a lot of these games went, so we should be fine in that regard, but unfortunately I won't be able to show you guys like in-depth team builders, and we'll kind of just see what's revealed in general. So going into this, if you guys did watch the podcast, you know I am probably like the Salamence guy, right? In general, it's my favorite Pokemon, but in ADV, I have drafted it, I think it's in 6 out of 8 teams that I've played ADV with, including this one, right? Incredible Pokemon in the format, in my opinion, top 3, and for some reason, it fell to pick 7 in our drafting pool, which was pretty crazy, to be completely honest with you. So I completely snapped it up. I mean, I've drafted this thing at pick 1 and 2 before, much less pick 7. It was a absolute no-brainer for me. Incredible Pokemon, very versatile, very strong, whether it be choice band sets, whether it be DD variants, whether it be mixed variants, whether it be those fat lefties like Wish sets with like Flamethrower and Toxic. Really solid Pokemon in ADV, and honestly incredibly easy to build around. Now, when you have Ments, you also have a big Ice Resist that you need, and that's going to be my loaded for me. I was originally going to get Jolteon with my round 2 wheel, but it ended up going at the wheel. I really love Jolteon plus Ments, and I was going to get an Ice Resist later. When that went, kind of just jumped into the Ice Resist. Milo is not a Pokemon I'm a big fan of in any generation that I've played outside of ADV Draft League, so that's obviously a good sign here. All of the physical typings don't hit as super effective in this generation, and the only typings that do hit as super effective with Pure Water and Grass and Electric are special typings. So all of those moves are hitting us on our fat stat. That means this guy lives every hit ever in this format. Really, really ridiculous Pokemon. Between Surf, Ice Beam, Recover, and either Toxic or Refresh to purge ourselves of potential status ailment is going to be really strong in this Pokemon. Really, it's here to kind of resist ice and, really accent Ments well and kind of deal with the things that it doesn't appreciate all that much. Another thing I really appreciate in ADV is having a very good spiker, and as much of a joke as it is, and you'll never see this in literally any other generation, obviously, we have round 3 Glalie, the GOAT of ADV Draft, in my opinion. Absolutely love this guy. Terrible stats, but what he has is he has nice strong stat Ice Beam, he has Earthquake for Ice Resist, he has Spikes, and he goes boom, baby. The spike support alongside Ments, but not only that, also Milotic, as I'm passively wearing down these teams, is going to be absolutely incredible. There's not a lot of other great spikers in this format. Spikes are very important while also being like a hot commodity here. So I am going to go ahead and grab Glalie really early just because I knew it wasn't coming back to me, and I know I sniped a lot of people, so it wasn't coming back. Then, in our ADV draft, we got Blaziken next. I love its offensive typing and move pool in conjunction with Salamence. Really breaks down a lot of things it doesn't appreciate. The only thing they kind of like tandemly struggle with is Waters, but that could be a benefit to me in the sense that because Waters are forcing on both of them, they really break for each other well. Kind of that overload principle in Pokemon Draft League. So I like this mod a lot. Strong mixed attacker. 80 base speed is not bad at all in ADV. I mean, Ments could be considered fast if you wanted to stretch and say so. Then we got Electabuzz next. Speaking of speed, 105 is actually pretty okay as our fastest Pokemon. Not ideal. Like I said, I really would have preferred a Jolteon in this slot, but not the end of the world. Again, really strong mixed attacker. 95-83 is not weak in ADV. The combination of Thunderbolt plus Ice Punch and even something like Fire Punch, as well as fighting coverage and cross chop for like the Blissies of the world, is actually going to make this Pokemon really, really difficult for a lot of teams to deal with. Strong special attack with physical accented coverage, which is nice. Then we got Meganium. Why did we grab Meganium? You need a Raikou check. We also needed a ground resist, didn't have a ground resist. Two of our offensive pieces are very weak to ground in Blaziken plus Electabuzz. So having ground resist is nice, but really this Pokemon is here to kind of guarantee be our Raikou answer if we do so happen to run into that Raikou matchup. I want to be prepared. And then going into the last, little back wheel portion, because like I said, we were 7th out of 8th in our draft pool. I drafted my 1-pointer first because I knew my last pick could not be sniped, just due to the amount of points that we had left over. First, we just drafted Duskull. It's 1 point. You get a spin blocker, right? Probably not ever going to come to any games. If it does come to one, that's pretty cool. But really, it's here to spin block and prevent a spin once, if it does end up coming. It's not going to do much else, unfortunately. I've drafted Ghastly, I've drafted Duskull. There's always those 1 point shitty ghost types that you can always roll with. And then lastly, I drafted Registeel. I actually like Registeel a lot. Our team up to this point did not have a rock resist, which is not a good idea in a tier that is inhabited by big, scary offensive rocks like Tyranitar and Aerodactyl. It also gives me another ice resist, which I really like, taking a little bit of pressure off of my Lodic. They're really solid defensively, really, really difficult to switch into between just like the standard of like Seismic Toss and Toxic and Protect and maybe even a Thunder Wave or whatever it may be. Again, great coverage overall. Solid mon. Also gets Superpower, which is pretty funny. And I think it's a Reggie exclusive move in this gen. So that's going to be our ADV team. Next, we'll jump into ORAS. ORAS actually had first overall, which is awesome because I've never gotten to try Mega Gardevoir. So we end up grabbing Guard here first. This Pokemon with the Pixelate boost in Gen 6 gives it a ridiculous boost to its Hyper Voices, making it ridiculously strong on that 165 base special attack. But not only that, because it's so naturally strong with that Pixelate boost pre-nerf, very often you can run very bulky Gardevoir sets like Will-O-Wisp Wish Protect sets, Calm Mind variants, but really it's kind of here just to find free switch-ins and kill things, and it's going to do a very good job of doing so. Something that I always really like drafting is going to be Crocodile. I like Crocodile. It really kills a lot of things that Guard doesn't appreciate, sets up rocks. Obviously, seems really early for Crook, but it was kind of like my round 2/3 wheel. Think of this as a round 3 Crocodile. Just put it on the dock because Crook was in that order there. And I think it's funny for the bit. You know, Owen loves his Crocodile and takes it 7 rounds too early. So, serviceable mon, great Scarfer, great Rocker, does a bunch of things roll compression wise. That's really important in 8mon. Another pairing I really like with Gardevoir is going to be Scizor. Grabs great momentum on a ton of big threats. Really pairs well with Crocodile as well, forcing in those steel types just like Gardevoir, getting a Crook, clicking EQ, clicking a knockoff, being very strong in that regard, as well as finding great U-turn opportunities to get in Gardevoir to just click some buttons. Again, momentum is going to be very important in this. It also gives me a potentially emergency defog, as there isn't a lot of great spin in the format, and I don't have any, and spikes are very, very prominent. Next up, we have Gengar, a Pokemon I really like. I like the 110 speed tier. I think it's a great Scarf for great specs. Really, really strong breaker. And again, pairs very sharply with that Gardevoir. Really just coming in, clicking some buttons. Qwilfish is going to give us the spikes that we need to give us water. It gets the fighting resist as well. That is not Gardevoir. It does not want to be pressured into doing so. It has terrible physical defense and does not really check any of them, which I think is really, really nice. But the main thing is going to be setting up spikes and T-waving things. This is ORAS. You get up spikes and you T-wave shit. It's about that simple. Next up, we grab Noivern. Everybody's favorite, oh no, I don't have any speed draft pick right here. Noivern, it's really here to give us a little bit of an elite speed tier. Gives us a ground immunity as our team is incredibly ground weak. Doesn't make us any less ground weak, to be honest with you. It just makes it where people can't kill Scarf Earthquake as easily, which is at least nice. But yeah, again, more emergency potential. Does it get defogged? It doesn't even get defogged. Yeah, just more fast speed, you know, decently strong, clicks buttons, you know, not too bad. Then we grab Conkeldurr. I wanted more things that punish the Pokemon that Gardevoir didn't like more explicitly. Pokemon like Fat Steel types, Dark types that might want to come in and maybe get in on a Psychic move and threaten us in that regard. Conkeldurr gives us something for that. Really strong Pokemon, just clicks Mach Punch, Guts, all that stuff, and it was very, very cheap here. Speaking of very cheap here, some more luxury offense. I grabbed Darmanitan for a similar reason, right? Breaks down steals. Really, really powerful Pokemon. Grabs great momentum with our offense and some hazards up from that Qwilfish. But more importantly, it was really cheap, and it was a really, really good choice Scarfer. I didn't have great Scarfers on this team in the sense of like momentum purposes and finding switches into other things and forcing things out, revenge killing with U-turns, things like that. Pokemon like Croak and Gengar are good Scarfers in that regard, like getting revenge kills, but not in like the more utility, you know, focus way. So I end up going Darm here in round number 8. keep rolling along. We go to my favorite generation of Draft League in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. We had a back-end pick, but I actually really like my team and how it turned out in USUM. First off, I grabbed one of my favorite Pokemon ever in Mega Diancie. Again, you want to just talk about strong, just versatile Pokemon. That's going to be Mega Dia. It's a solid rocker, but also just clicks Moonblast, just clicks Diamond Storm, and just takes KO. Strong Earth Power, can Calm Mind, can Rock Polish. Really does it all. We can stay pre-Mega and find setup opportunities a lot more easier, and then we can Mega and just kill everything, which is really cool. Pokemon I'm really comfortable with using. Absolutely love it. All three of my Pokemon, or all three of my round 1 picks, I actually really do appreciate and love on these 3 drafts. Then we drafted Zapdos, Steel Resist, Momentum Grabber, U-Turn and Volt Switch, get in Diancie, click some buttons, right? It's kind of the main idea. Obviously, it's going to be a solid fighting resist when our fairy doesn't resist fighting. That's also nice. Zapdos and Diancie just pair really well in the sense of Zapdos really checking all the things that Diancie hates. It also checks offensive grounds pretty well. Speaking of which, a Pokemon on our team that really appreciates that is going to be Heatran, another Pokemon that really does pair well with Zapdos. Zapdos is going to check a lot of those offensive grounds and really offensively check a lot of those waters as well as be able to switch into them, whereas Heatran is a great ice check, which I really do appreciate. Really strong Pokemon in general. Sets up rocks, magma storms, things of the sort. This is not going to be one of our Z captains. We do have 3 on this team. Almost went Z Heatran, but ended up going another route in which we got Komo-o in round 4. Now, this can't Omni Boost Z move like its signature move, but still very versatile, very strong. Another Stealth Rocker. So we have 3 rockers at this point, and spoilers, we get more, so our Diancie like never has to rock if we don't want it to. But we can Dragon Dance, we can Swords Dance, we can bulk up, we can autotomize, and do a ton of really cool things. Also, just a ridiculously bulky Pokemon, and honestly, like Rock's 3 attacks, like Z move variants, are going to be very strong in a lot of matchups. Next up, we ended up grabbing, and it also pairs well with Heatran in the sense that Heatran is a great fairy check, which Komo obviously really does appreciate. Next up, we end up grabbing our ground and Mamoswine right here. Again, another really strong breaker, strong prio, and really appreciates that momentum that Zapdos is going to offer and bringing it in on potentially like ground types and things of the sort that might want to switch in on Zapdos, which is really nice. Just kind of clicks the button, gives a good revenging tool in strong Ice Shard. Next up, I grabbed Scolipede. Reason being is it gives us a little bit more speed. Not your conventional, like, fastest mon, what you want on a team, to be completely honest with you. But what I do appreciate about Scolipede is, like, the speed boost aspect, as well as giving us spikes. I think teams with, like, all this crazy offense, Komo-o and Mega Diancie and Zapdos grabbing U-turns and things of the sort, really does appreciate spike stack. Scolipede can do so. It can also Swords Dance and win, especially alongside Z moves, which this does have access to run, which is nice. Decidueye is going to give us a ground resist. It's going to give us some potential removal and defog in case we are getting counterstacked and we can't deal with it. Obviously, we have Zapdos and Diancie, but it's going to free it up in that regard just a little bit. Checks offensive fightings to a decent amount. Not really the ones we want to check, but it's also a water check. Our team doesn't really appreciate switching into bulky waters all that much. Zapdos is very pressured to do so, so Decidueye is going to help us out in that regard. And then lastly, we have Big Musharna. Why is Musharna on this team? Because in Gen 7, you kind of have the 3 really big offensive fighting type megas in Lop, Medi, and Gallade. Musharna is a Pokemon that checks all 3 of them for very cheap. This can also be Z-move, which is nice in the regards of Mega Gallade, really weakening its knockoffs. Other fighting types too, really weakening their knockoffs if we do want to go Z-move, literally just for show, to not take the boosted knockoff damage and maybe have a Z-move in the back if our other Z guy doesn't work. You'll see throughout the season I do bring double Z a couple times. So yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to doing so. So yeah, solid Pokemon, checks offensive fighting, so that's really about it. Our team didn't really appreciate them up to this point, and that's what Musharna's here to do. And yeah, I know that was like really fast, but I wanted to get through the teams quick so we can get right to the battles. All right, we're gonna slow down the commentary a little bit, take a chill pill, not be as intense. I really wanted to get through that draft analysis portion, but then I realized I was talking super fast. So we're gonna go ahead and slow it down a little bit. Week 1, we're playing against Matthias in ADV. Really nice guy. I actually feel like I've played him week 1 or 2 of Khlazic like 3 or 4 times at this point. Super nice guy. However, his draft, not super nice. He drafted the fabled Skarm Bliss core, which is really annoying. Very obnoxious to try and deal with. Skarm Bliss just covers each other so well in these pre-physical special split generations. They cover each other well after it, so keep in mind before, I mean, there is no physical attackers that break through Skarm, and when you can't use physical attackers to break through Blissey because Skarm walls them, damn. Same thing with Blissey with the special attackers, right? So we have to be very creative in these mixed sets that we're going to be running, but I think we have a pretty cool squad to do so. We also have things like Jolteon, which outspeeds my whole team and exerts incredible offensive pressure. Blastoise and Venusaur as a really fun little Gem 1 starter core, really annoying in this matchup. Magmar and Pinsir, which are actually both strong offensively, and then Smeargle, which can always be a wild card. I know he always drafts Smeargle, so he definitely understands how to use it and how to use it well. So that's obviously going to be a fun little aspect of this. Really quick team breakdown of what we brought. We have a lead Glalie, Ice Beam, Boom, Spikes, Taunt. Pretty simple, nice and mixed. Lumberry, DD, mixed Ments, so HP, Flying, Earthquake, Flamethrower, and Dragon Dance. Great endgame win con. Lots of status coming out from his team, so I want to be prepared for Thunderbolts and things of this, or Thunder Waves and things of the sort. We have a Sub-Reversal, Protect, Blaziken with access to Flamethrower, Reversal, Substitute, and Protect. Leftovers, Sub-3 attacks, Electabuzz, Surf, Refresh, Ice Beam, Recover, Milotic, and a Thunderbolt, Seismic Toss, Protect, Thunder Wave, Registeel. Nice and simple, lots of Paras spam, and some pretty scary setup offense, and lots of mixed attacking threats. Like I said, we are going to go ahead and lead off with our Glalie. Now, something to keep in mind is I understand how Taunt works in ADV, right? So don't yell at me in the comments like, Taunt's really bad in ADV. I know, it only lasts for 2 turns. But in these specific instances, when Pokemon like Skarmory are out in my Glalie's face, I want the 2 turns of Taunt. I'm fine with them damaging me. If I'm getting a free Spike out of it, that's completely fine with me. If I get up a free Spike and then an Ice Beam off out of it, completely fine with me. I'm preventing hazards from going up on my side when I don't have means of removing them, which is really important when paying into these slower paced teams like Matthias's. So I am going to Taunt immediately turn 1. Skarm is going to go ahead and fall for the Taunt, not going to be able to Spike. And, oh, it looks like it actually, no, I'm wrong. He ended up trying to use Taunt as well. But really good for me to know is that he immediately switches out, showing me either he doesn't want to take this Ice Beam, maybe full Fizz Def, or doesn't have an attacking move, which some Skarms end up not running, especially being that Taunt's not that good in this gen. We do see Blastoise pivot out. This Pokemon can spin. I'm okay with it spinning this initial time because I can always get to Spikes later. What its spinning does is it gives me a pretty free entry point into my my Electabuzz, which lets me get off a sub and exert crazy pressure. Electabuzz is incredibly powerful this game. We do see a Surf, so aggressive play from him, getting off some damage, maybe scouting for Duskull. I am going to go ahead and go into my Electabuzz. They are going to be forced out as I sub up on Blissey. This is the exact position we want. Between Thunderbolt, Fire Punch, and Cross Chop, we hit the entirety of this team ridiculously hard. So this turn, I am just going to go ahead and throw off a Cross Chop. Unfortunately, it misses a lot. My opponent is going to miss this turn. Ice Beam is going to break my sub. However, I know that they can't hit me with this, and I don't think they're going to risk Thunder Waving me. So I am going to go ahead and Cross Chop, make up for that miss prior, and getting a nice little critical hit. And the crit is going to put this thing in range of a Thunderbolt, allowing me to be a little bit aggressive, click a mid-ground Thunderbolt. As Venusaur comes out, and you see the hacks keeps rolling. We get pretty lucky here. Nice little para on the Venusaur. This is going to allow me to kind of bait for a sub turn. Again, if I don't get it, I don't get it. That's fine. But Matthias actually ends up making what I think is a misplay and subbing himself, which is just going to give me more opportunities to stay behind the sub potentially. As you see, it does end up getting parried right here. Next turn, just going to Fire Punch it to 2-hit KO. Just kidding. It's an Oko. I don't know if that mattered. I'm going to say it probably mattered. I probably didn't Oko Venusaur from there. But regardless, it's going to force out this Pinsir, which is going to be able to live a hit and get off an Earthquake. But again, I'm kind of healing up gradually and dealing crazy damage to this team. Even if the Jolteon wants to come out and take a neutral Fire Punch, that's completely fine with me. Jolteon is going to pivot out right here. Again, I know I don't initially break this. I'm pretty darn low. I'm just going to go to my Registeel, which is my designated Jolteon answer as we rest for def. We get Thunderbolt paired, but I don't think I complain with how lucky we've kind of gotten up to this point. I'm going to get Paralyzed right here on the Skarmory coming out. I'm going to make a nice and aggressive, hard Blaziken play immediately. Out comes the Blissey right here, as I believe I do, unfortunately, not get to sub. Yeah, I don't get to sub. It ends up breaking right there. Blastoise is going to come out, Surf into my Glalie, and at this point, I'm kind of fine with just booming, right? The only boom resist on this team is going to be Skarmory, which I'm fine with that offensive positioning, getting back into my Blaziken, getting into my Electabuzz even, whatever it may be. But also, it kills the Jolteon, and it puts crazy damage on this Blastoise, which is the hardest thing for my team to beat right now. My Lumberry, pretty bulky Ments, can actually probably win soon, as we live a lot of HP Ice Barriers from Jolteon, and we'll be able to beat that Skarm 1v1, depending on the situation. So I'm actually pretty confident with this position. We are just going to Ice Beam here. I think I wanted to cover him going into the Glalie. I don't think it ends up or the Skarm. But yeah, I just boom here, get off 78%. And from here, I am going to get out into that Salamence right here. I do die to Ice Beam, so I can't DD on this. I am just going to Hidden Power Flying, knock this Pokemon right out. Out comes Big Jolteon. It Thunder Waves. Thankfully, like I said, the Lumberry is going to come clutch. I see no reason to DD, right? If I live HP Ice, I live it. I can kill this with Earthquake. If not, then I don't. Skarm's going to come out, and I'm just going to go ahead and Flamethrower 3 times as he gets up some nice little late game spikes. I think just kind of conceding defeat at that point, which is very, very valid. There wasn't really much he could do with last on Skarm. So G's to Matthias, obviously very, very, you see, sorry for the cheese, bro. I definitely got very, very lucky in this one. Can't front, can't hold you, you know, got very, very lucky. But hey, that's Pokemon, that's ADV for sure. It's a big ass format. But yeah, we're able to take home a nice week 1 win. We're going to move on to week 2 in ORAS. Alrighty, week 2 rolled around and we were playing against Nintendo Fox right here. A really, really scary ORAS matchup. I'll be honest with you, out of all my teams, my ORAS one was by far my worst one. It wasn't particularly close, actually, how bad my ORAS team was, but I actually think this was a pretty solid matchup, right? Or at least in some regards. First off is Gardevoir. Gardevoir looks crazy. I mean, there's no fairy resist on this team. Hyper Voice looks very free, right? Well, I made a mistake. I don't have the pace anymore, but I made the mistake of accidentally bringing Hyper Beam. I typed in Hyper, clicked Enter, and got into the game and realized that I was Hyper Beam, which means my Fairy Stab isn't as good. I mean, it's a one-time nuke. I kill something, right? But I can't really click it. Now, Side Shock is also pretty darn free, which we are on this set, so that's nice. We also have like a Fizz-Def helmet, Quillfish in order to check things like the Lopunny, which Scrappy doesn't block Intim in this generation, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some helmet chip on that Intimate, get up some spikes, things of the sort. We have an Assault Vest, very, very specially defensive. Conkeldurr is gonna be kind of like my main check to things like Thundurus, which is really nice. And also soft checks Pokemon like Suicune in the sense like I can take Scalds on, get burned, and not be worried about it. We have, I believe, an offensive SC Scizor, like a bulky Taunt Rocks Crocodile, and then we have a Sub-Willow Hex Gengar, which is also really darn strong in this matchup. You can see Nintendo's team pretty darn scary. On the bench, he also had big threats. Like, sorry, I'm looking for this on the document on the side of me. We also had Pokemon like Amoonguss and Sylveon that were left on the bench out of his 8 Pokemon. So other big threats that we obviously accounted for in this matchup. I believe I might have been safety goggles on our Scizor specifically for that Amoonguss. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. We are going to see a Gliscor lead and a Crocodile right here. I won't lie to you, I saw Hypercutter and I got very, very nervous. In my head, I'm like, okay, this is some kind of setup variant, maybe some like kind of like Yachi variant. What I want to do immediately is taunt this guy right away, stop from getting off any shenanigans. I'm not like no speed Crocodile. I'm pretty darn fast in this thing. I believe like an Adamant variant, but very fast. Faster than I expected any Gliscor to be in this matchup. But you'll see, unfortunately, I end up being slower. So we see a Swords Dance pop. We see the taunt go slower, and EQ is going to come out and do a ton of damage. I am a very bulky Crocodile. The only issue is this turn I am going to go ahead and knock off this thing's item. Not do that much damage, unfortunately, as it shows me a red card. This is very scary. A lot of my fatter things on my team are kind of predicated around dealing with this Pokemon with its own Toxicroak, with it being a little bit of a slower set, whatever it may be. For example, we have a Hex Gengar. Gengar can't threaten this thing anymore right now, right? This Acro is about to do crazy damage to it. Our Gardevoir doesn't have Protect in this matchup, which means this thing is for sure going to be faster than us once after that first turn initially, at least. You know, we could revenge it with, you know, theoretically a Hyper Voice or something like that after, but can't right now. It's out of range of Scizor. Something like Quillfish can even come in and Intim pivot it. There's a lot of things that can go very, very wrong in this scenario in which we're at. And we obviously can't use our Conkeldurr to take a hit because we're just going to get killed by a +2 Acro. So really, really solid set here from Nintendo. We're actually in a terrible, terrible position immediately. And on top of that, we don't even get Stealth Rock, which is really bad in this matchup and chipping down this team. We're going to sack our Crocodile right here. I do go into my Scizor as I know I can take a +2 hit. And I can potentially try and 2-hit KO with Bullet Punch, or at least 2 Bullet Punches will put it in range of Gengar. So I am kind of sacking my Scizor right here, which is a strong Pokemon. And keep in mind, my only, like, one of my only Steel resist in this matchup, which is scary into Bisharp, because Bisharp in general has an incredible matchup into us. I've never seen a better Bisharp matchup of all Pokemon. But we're going to go ahead, just click a Bullet Punch. Do about 27, so we definitely don't 2-hit KO. Unfortunately, we are going to get crit with Acro. That did matter. We were pretty bulky on our Scizor. We didn't die to that +2 Acro. And again, obviously this thing did 1v1 us, but what getting off 2 Bullet Punches would have done was put this in range of our Gengar. So at this point, I'm thinking it's kind of just wraps. I am going to go into my Gengar. I do have to Wisp, but I wanted to keep health on Gengar for this thing. But we're going to see Lopunny come in. Makes sense. It scouts for like Spec Shadow Ball, as this thing does still like get off crazy strong hits into the likes of Conk and Quillfish and even Gardevoir pre-Mega. So there's no reason for him to sack it, just in case. But we do get a burn off on Lop, which is great, and maybe a way to kind of start clawing back into this game. Gonna go hard Quillfish here, get off an Intim, as return does absolutely nothing, which is great. I'm like, cool, free spike. We're in a great position. Unfortunately, he reveals Thunderbolt. Crazy tech. I don't think I've seen a lot of Mega Lock games, and I've seen a lot of Mega Lock games into like Quillfish Intim as the pivot. I don't think I've ever seen Thunderbolt, and I don't think I've ever expected it to do freaking 60% damn near. So this is just a straight up 2-hit KO. Very, very good bring on Nintendo Sport. Again, in the builder, he has smoked me up to this point. We are going to make a pivot out into our Conk here as I am AV. This is obviously a Lopunny clicking Thunderbolt. And return isn't going to hurt -1 and burned, really. We can get out into our Conk and exert some offensive pressure because this Pokemon's actually really strong in this matchup into his team. I'm just going to go ahead and Mach Punch, take out the Lop, not let it get off any prior damage. Also not let it get off a Healing Wish into this Gliscor, which would have been really bad for me. Out comes Gliscor right here. I believe I am just going to go ahead and pivot into my Quillfish. What this does is I force an Acro here. I do die to it because it is Hyper Cutter, doesn't get Intimed, but this chip does guarantee put this in range of just a normal Hex, which I think is very important. So I do go ahead and click Hex here. We are going to be able to take out the giant threat of a Gliscor that pretty much just got 3 kills against us. Yeah, no, it did get 3 kills. Went crazy. Bishop's going to come out, and if you look at my team up to this point, I don't really have a knockoff switch in. Obviously, my Gardevoir gets blown up. I have to Mega the next turn. I'm going to get outsped, whatever it may be. And my Conk really doesn't want to take a knockoff because it's kind of my main way of not just raw losing to Thundurus at this point. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I can will this thing, live a hit, and kind of approach it from there. Unfortunately, he does show to be Scarf Bisharp, which is very strong in this matchup, especially now that we lost our Crocodile. I know Croc obviously could have potentially given this a Defiant boost, but we lost our knockoff resist. That wasn't Conk that we need our item on. And we lost our Quillfish, which is kind of our main steel resist, as well as Scizor, which could have checked this because we were very physically defensive. So unfortunately, we are just going to get knocked and just die. Going to Conk, I'm going to make a little bit of an aggressive play. Just click a nice and strong Ice Punch. After Spike, it does do a ton of damage to Druddigon. The only issue is because this is Rough Skin Helmet, I can't take this next hit, or I am just going to lose to Thundurus plus Suicune. He makes a good play, goes for a Gunk Shot on my switch out. Very, very smart play. Unfortunately, unfortunately for him, fortunately for us, you're pretty lucky. We dodge it. I would click Hyper Voice here, and again, I kind of mentioned that preamble before, because obviously Hyper Voice is the click here into this team. I don't click it because I'm Hyper Beam. So I click Side Shock. Thankfully, it does kill this thing, but I think that was a roll, so that was pretty scary. Bisharp is going to come out this next turn. I do just have to go into my Conk, and the reason I didn't want to take that second hit on my what do you call it, Conkeldurr, is because I still am out of range of an Iron Head at this point. Just barely, as you see, but I am out of range. I'm going to make an aggressive play, double out into my Gardevoir right away here. And again, unfortunately, we're not like any kind of sub-variant or anything that could really take advantage of Suicune. As you do get out into Guard, just go ahead and click Side Shock. Do like 40%, which is nice. Conk is going to be roared back in, obviously unfortunate. Go back out to Guard. And again, we're kind of in a position where he should have us in checkmate. There's not much we can do in order to stop the combination of Bisharp plus the Thundurus, especially with my team so low. So I'm just going to kind of play for a choke at this point. What we do is we Side Shot, get a pretty nasty roll there, kill the Suicune. I am just going to go ahead and sack my Gardevoir to the Iron Head. And right here, my play for a choke is him going hard into Thundurus and just dying to a Mach Punch. Or dying to an Ice Punch. Otherwise, we do lose the game 2-0. In Khlazic, we don't really count differential. It's balanced based on win quality, like, you know, the strength of schedule and things like that. So I'm not really worried about getting diff right here and Mach Punching and getting a kill. I am more concerned with him choking, going Ice Punch, killing this Thundurus, which might not even kill, and then preventing this with Mach Punch and maybe winning if it's not Sucker. But he does make a smart play. Just sacks us. There's literally no reason to go into the Thundurus, especially when diff doesn't matter. And we are going to drop this game in a 2-0 fashion. Again, really well played. I think like the lead Hyper Cutter SD Red card Gliscor was just such a good set on Nintago set part, and it put a hole in my team that I just couldn't recover from. Sometimes you just get smoked in the builder, and in this league there's some great players, and sometimes that shit's gonna happen, right? But unfortunately we're gonna lose with our ORAS team. Again, my least favorite team that we have this go round to the Hoenn Khlazic, but hopefully we can bounce back in week 3 in USUM, my favorite team. All right, week number 3, our first USUM game. We're going up against Gold Mason here, and a pretty darn scary team. We have big threats, and honestly, top Pokemon in the USUM format right now in Z Zeraora, as well as I believe it was Z Latias as well. Some great support pieces in Klefki, Seismitoad, and Scrafty, and then a Mega Charizard X that we really don't have an answer to on this team, at least like long-term answer to. So lots of lures and potential ways of beating that guy. First up, we have our Mega Diancie, which is going to be a Rock Polish variant, which Moonblast, Hidden Power Fire, Power Gem, and Rock Polish in this matchup. I'm trying to think of what Hidden Power Fire is for. Let me take a look at the doc really quick into what he had that it was for. Was it just to cover? I think it was just to cover Magnet Rise Klefki, as well as hit Superior a little bit harder, if I had to guess. Unless he made some transactions, since then. I'm not 100% sure. But really strong win condition. I mean, really doesn't have great counterplay to this if we can lure in and kill that Klefki. After that, Rock Polish goes up, we have some chip on everything, the game is just over. And again, our magic bounce ability is nice to turn T-Waves into that, so I like that as for that reason as a win con as well. We have a Sugar Bear Heatran is going to be rocking out with Lava Plume, Dragon Pulse, Roar, and Toxic. This thing is kind of multi-purpose. It's here to pivot in on Klefki, bait in Pokemon like Seismitoad and Zard. If they feel like they can comfortably take my hits well, they're going to take a Toxic, maybe even a Lava Plume in the case of Seismitoad and get burned. Same thing as Latias. Lava Plume, Dragon Pulse hits pretty much everything neutrally or super effectively, really only Seismitoad deals with otherwise, and we can just Toxic that thing, which is great. We have Roar to prevent being set up all over on by the Latias, which is obviously very, very nice. And yeah, just overall, pretty solid Pokemon, mixed defenses. Shukas to allow us to live a hit from the Zard and either get off a Dragon Pulse to kill it or a Toxic to put it on a timer. And we also have a Colbur Berry, pretty physically defensive Decidueye, going to be one of our main pivots into the Zeraora. We are Leaf Blade, U-Turn, Shadow Sneak, and Defog. Just to get away hazards, we have hazards of our own on this team in Rock's Komodo, which we'll get to, but I like the ability to get rid of his Spike Stack, which can be really, really overbearing for us if Klefki ends up getting a ton of them up. So that's obviously nice in that regard. We have a Lumberry, SD Scolipede, great breaker in this game, potential win condition as well, just stabs, Earthquake, Swords Dance, is unbelievably strong. Really, Seismitoad takes any chip, it's freaking dead. It's a great way of breaking down Pokemon like Scrafty, which is obviously really nice for the team, and really annoying for our Komodo, which is going to be the next Pokemon we talk about. We are Haban Berry this week to take a hit from that Zard. Actually, a really, really good lure and check for that guy, especially if it ends up running like Flare Blitz, EQ, Dragon Dance, Roost. Our Komodo actually just walls in, even if it is covering a Dragon move, that Dragon Claw, you're able to eat it up and revenge it with a really strong Draco Meteor or Flamethrower to hit the Klefki, and then we have Stealth Rock and Roar, again, just to kind of prevent any kind of setup shenanigans from the likes of Latias after we click a Draco, or the likes of Zeraora after we click a Draco. It also soft checks Zeraora really well. With Haban, we take Z Outrage very, very comfortably. And then we have a Choice Scarf Mamoswine. Great at revenge killing a lot of these Pokemon. Really, it's a great check to Zeraora. Can't really switch in hard on knockoffs, but we can come in afterwards and just revenge it with the Scarf Earthquake. It's a great way of revenging things like Latias and even non-boosted Zard, which I like a lot about it. And there's not any ground resist on this team or any ice resist on this team outside of Klefki. So there is a possible endgame of setting up a Scarf Mamoswine win. That being said, we're going to jump right into it. I am going to lead off with my Komodo, as I wanted to punish any kind of like potential Zard lead to get off the Mega. I also wanted to get up Rocks in the face of Seismitoad, and again, really start chipping down this team. If I can get up Rocks pre-Zard Mega, I'm going to be in a good position. Unfortunately, we see a Klefki lead. Not the end of the world, we are forced out, but we're not able to get the early Rocks like we want to into a team that only has Defog Latias as a removal option. Heatran is going to come in. I'm going to go ahead and click Toxic here. Reason I didn't click anything like Dragon Pulse, 1, this is pre-Mega, 2, Toxic covers any of these Pokemon, and Latias might not be the initial pivot. So I wanted to put something on a timer. Unfortunately, we do miss into the Zard, which is a little unfortunate, not the end of the world. I'm going to make the pivot into Komodo right here. I could stay in and burn my Sugar right now, but I don't think I need to, being that I also have my Komodo for this, and I can get up Rocks as I force this thing out afterwards as well. As EQ, you're going to see, actually does not do very much damage. This also punished him for DDing. I could just Draco immediately after. I am going to go ahead and Draco this next turn, as the Klefki is going to come out. Pivot back onto Heatran on, I believe, what is a Thunder Wave. Yeah, it is going to be a Thunder Wave right here on my Heatran. But again, just going to try and get off that Toxic, I'm going to go ahead and throw off a Lava Plume, try and bait a bird maybe on something. The Zard is going to overplay a little bit, go for a Dragon Claw as I made the Komodo pivot last time, so kind of have him in, kind of in his head a little bit there. And we do live Dragon Claw and Earthquake, as you see, so we're able to get off a Toxic and a Dragon Pulse. And while our Heatran is sacked right here, it is going to trade for the Zard, or get off a Lava Plume on, or get off a Dragon Pulse on something else, like a Latias pivot. pivot or a Seismitoad pivot. Out comes the Seismitoad next as my Kommo-o comes out as well. I feel pretty comfortable just getting up Stealth Rock right here, trading some damage on the Seismitoad with the Draco Meteor, because the main lure he was here for is gone now. As Icy Wind does pop into my Kommo-o, doesn't do that much damage, only 19 because Kommo-o is super fat. Scrafty's going to go ahead and pivot out right here, as I believe I double out into my Decidueye. So unfortunate turn of events for me, and I'm just going to take hazards as the Scrafty reveals leftovers at least. I'm going to go ahead and U-turn, basically try and sack off my Kommo-o here. But we are going to see that he does end up clicking Super Fang, which is great for me because now I get off another attack. Klefki is going to pivot out this next turn. I'm going to try and throw off a Draco Meteor. It does, obviously become immune to that, but I can just click Flamethrower and 3-8 KO, put on some damage, really punish the triple spike, as we actually get pretty lucky and get a crit on the second one, which is nice. Seismitoad's going to come out, but this is great positioning for me. I can just sack my Kommo-o, immediately get into Decidueye, and because that Klefki is gone, I know I at least will not have to deal with spikes anymore, as I can just defog the hazards away. And rocks really aren't threading the needle too much for me in the sense that they're like huge, especially with the Zard being dead now. We are just going to go ahead and U-turn out on the Scrafty afterwards, go into my Scolipede, as we do see a knockoff come out. It does about 40%, so decent amount of chip. And I'm going to go ahead and just Sword Stance up here, try and do some crazy damage. I don't think he can fit Foul Play in this matchup. I am going to go ahead, eat the knockoff up for 32. Go ahead and go for a Mega Horn, not get the kill, get off sufficient chip though, as another knockoff hits. Does 27 that time, so crazy min-max roll. And we're going to go ahead and Poison Jab and kill this guy. From this position, it actually looks like we just win the game, right? Latias dies, Zeraora dies to Mega Horn, and Seismitoad dies to Mega Horn. Obviously, you have to hit 3 Mega Horns if that's going to be the case. So Seismitoad is first, totally fine with this damage right here. Going to go ahead, click Mega Horn, and unfortunately miss right here. So we do go down, die to the Scald, and then we're going to be forced out into Decidueye. Now, part of me wishes I maybe Poison Jab, because this thing is close to being in range of Diancie. That's kind of the end game we're going for, is either Diancie end game with Moonblast after a Rock Polish, or going for a Scarf Mammoth Swine, Ice Cold Crash, or Earthquake Sweep, depending on what dies first on his team. If Latias dies early, then we're in a good spot to EQ, otherwise we gotta crash through. And again, both those things are really helped out by Seismitoad being chipped. So Zeraora is going to come out. I believe I do just Leaf Blade. It's great damage on anything. If Latias wants to come out after, I can just throw off an Adamant, not Max Attack, but an Adamant Shadow Sneak. As Zeraora does come out, I won't die to knockoff from here. I might die to Z Dark, as he does pop the Z move. It's not Z Dark, it's Z Dragon, which Z Dragon Outrage does pick me off from there, but that's fine. We burn the Z move. I'm going to go for a Crash right here, because I know for a fact I do live a close combat from non-boosting item Zeraora, and it covers the switch out to Latias. And if I can kill Latias, I can pretty comfortably win with Earthquake here very, very soon. So we do eat up the close combat right here. Zeraora is going to take a little bit of damage. Icicle Crash again, pick this KO into this, and again there was no switch into Icicle Crash as well. We're going to see the side still come out, eat its Eye of Papa Berry, get back up really healthy, get a little bit lucky though, get a nice little flinch as we get off 45% on the Seismitoad. Bring it down to 19. It does 1v1 us, but from this position, Diancie should have this locked up, barring any crazy unluck. We are max speed, so we're speed tying a max speed Latias. As you see, it does come in. It does Calm Mind. We have to hope it's not Weakness Policy and wins the tie next turn. Thankfully, neither of those things happen, as we do just 2 KO it with said Moonblast, and we're able to take home a nice 1-0 victory here against Gold Mason, getting back on the right track of things. Got pretty lucky with the Ice Crash flinch, but I also think I got kind of unlucky with other points in the game, in terms of the game, so I think it all evens out, to be honest with you. But I don't know, let me know what you guys think. And yeah, let's jump into ADV game number 2. Already in week 4, we're playing some ADV here against Max. He has a pretty scary team, also a pretty funny team in the sense that he has a triple Kanto Bird with Zapdos, Moltres, and no, is there Moltres on this team? I believe there is. I believe he made some transactions, because I'm remembering this now. Yeah, he made some transactions, but he originally had triple Bird here, and Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno, also some other big threats like, what do you call it, Swampert, which is really, really annoying for the team. Miltank, which is also very annoying, as you'll see, but I think we got a fun squad. We have League Glalie, Spike's Ice Beam, Explosion, and Hidden Power Fire in this one. We have a Salamence. I believe there might have been a Scizor on this team originally. Yeah, I'm looking. I think the Scizor's gone, but I'm pretty sure there was a Scizor on this team. Then we have Salamence here, Dragon Claw, Hidden Power Grass, Hydro Pump, and Flamethrower. Just a max special, or a special attacking variant. Really actually has incredible coverage into his squad. So we'll see how that ends up going. We're just Lumberry in that set. Shallow Berry Blaziken with Sky Uppercut, Rock Slide, Flamethrower, and Hidden Power Grass. Lots of ways to kind of proc that Shallow and just kind of win the game potentially. Mostly special in our I guess mixed, completely mixed down the board. Sky Uppercut is great for things like Miltank, Rock Slide for like the Moltres, and then Flamethrower, Hidden Power Grass is really strong otherwise as well. I have a pretty physically defensive Meganium with Razor Leaf, Hidden Power Fire, Leech Seed, and Protect. I'm trying to remember why we were Razor Leaf. I think it was because, it was because of PP, right? Because Giga Drain has 8 PP in Generation 3, and we needed Hidden Power Fire to not be Scizor fodder, which is a really, really big issue for the squad. Then we have a pretty physically defensive, but mixed defensive Milotic with Surf, Ice Beam, Recover, and Toxic. Nice and simple, spread some Toxics, stay healthy, stay annoying, right? And then lastly, Electabuzz, which is going to be Thunderbolt, Hidden Power Grass, Fire Punch, and Ice Punch in the set. Just nice, crazy coverage all around, which is nice. That being said, let's jump into it. We do see a lead Miltank, as our Glalie is going to lead in this game. Fast Body Slam immediately crits and brings us down to 1 HP, which is pretty unfortunate. We did live 2 of those otherwise, but now we have to pivot out, immediately get paired on our Meganium. So the game's not going super well for us immediately. It is going to go ahead and Body Slam again, as we get paired. An unfortunate one, another Body Slam pops. We don't get paired this time, we get off our Leech Seed, which is nice. Again, if any Pokemon's going to be paired, this isn't the worst one to be paired. But then he shows the Hyper Beam tech, which is pretty crazy. This upcoming turn, we would have gotten off enough damage to where we could have revenged it with something like Blaziken in the back. But unfortunately, we do see the Hyper Beam is going to just straight up KO us, and the only thing on my team that can OHKO this Miltank from 88% is actually going to be Boom Glalie. So this Miltank on its own just took out a third of my team due to running Hyper Beam. Again, just a crazy niche interaction and building tech from Max here. He's going to get me as I do boom and take out his Miltank, but not at the cost of some Pokemon. Unfortunately, the Zapdos is going to come out next. It is going to eat the Ice Punch up, showing to be pretty bulky. And Thunder Wave, keep in mind, in older gens, you can Thunder Wave Electric type, so my Electabuzz is going to be paired the rest of this game. Again, not very good. Scizor is going to pivot out right here as I do mid-ground Thunderbolt. Do a lot of damage, which is obviously very, very nice. I didn't think he'd want to take 2 Ice Punches, as the Swampert is going to come out next, scouting for the Fire Punch. Unfortunately, I don't have the dog in me, and I don't click Hidden Power Grass on the switch in. I actually ended up going hard Blaziken because I didn't want to just like sack my Scizor potentially. And my Electabuzz potentially, as I like to pivot into Zapdos. Right here, I am going to pivot on to Men, so we're going to have to do a little bit of pivot play ourselves, as I do expect Water or Ground move into this slot. We do see an EQ. Obviously, you have to switch out. Hidden Power Grass doesn't kill. Ice Beam kills me. Going to pivot out into my Milotic. And again, this Swampert is kind of the biggest issue for my squad, outside of the Miltank, to be honest with you, because I don't really break it down well. I'm going to Toxic it and either find out if it's refresh and force the refresh, or put this thing on a permanent timer. Zapdos is going to come out and take a Surf, pop right into Pataya Berry range. So again, he just has the lines down right now. Thunderbolt is just going to KO my Milotic. +1, we're not living that. Out comes Mence. Kind of got to hope I win a speed tie here, but it should be pretty bulky earlier, so it might not have been a tie. I am just going to go ahead and knock it out immediately after. Moltres is going to pivot out. Right here, I do just click the Hydro Pump. Hindsight, maybe sacking Electabuzz, going Blaziken, and Rock Sliding was a better play. I'm trying to find my best win path to win the game, and right now in my mind, it's either this thing being super offensive and dying to pump, or my Blaziken. I think in hindsight, going into Electabuzz allowed for a little bit of the best of both worlds, because this Moltres can't OHKO my Blaziken, and I can kill with a Rock Slide. Worst case, it puts me in a Salic, and I'm actually in a pretty good position. So I'm going to go ahead and unfortunately die right here immediately. Blaziken's going to pivot out. I do Rock Slide. It is pretty bulky, as I saw from the Hydro Pump. I knocked this guy out immediately, but again, yeah, I think I should have just gone Blaziken and sack that guy to get a free switch, or gone Electabuzz and sacked and gotten a free switch into Blaziken. So out comes the Swampert right here. We are going to see a ground move want to potentially come out, ground or water. Either way, my play is unfortunately going to be Blaziken or Electabuzz. I am not Endure on this variant, so it's not like I can live a hit and proc my berry and win the game. I do just kind of have to hope this Poison Chip has put this Swampert in range, and depending on how much special defense it has, that is a possibility. We do go ahead and click the Hidden Power. Unfortunately, it's not enough to take it out, and we do lose the game here. I'm not sure what he had in the back. If it was something like Articuno, we did win if we killed that part, but it really just depends on what he had. I'm not sure what it was, to be honest with you. So that's on me. I think the Miltank got crazy value, and I think I just kind of had the SAT game wrong in what I should have done. I think I should have kept Mence. Like, for example, I get off, I sack my Electabuzz, I go into Mence there instead. It forced him to either Ice Beam, or if he EQs into Ice Beams, I Hidden Power Grass, put in guaranteed range of Blaziken, and potentially win the game, again, depending on what is in the back for him. But, you know, you live and you learn. 2-2, not the end of the world. It's a 9-week season, so just gotta lock in for week 5. Alrighty, week 5, and we're back in ORAS against Rob Jr. Now, if those of you don't know, I don't know if it was an L5 server in the podcast, we talked about Rob a little bit, but another all-time great player in the Draft League format. I don't know if he plays as much, I think he does a lot of smoke on stuff, but incredible Draft League player that has been around the scene for a very long time. He was on my Clash of Kings team that me and Kaz actually captained and won the tournament with, but I don't think I've ever actually played Rob in a game outside of like mocking him during that season, in which he played very well. So this is always fun. I like playing in these leagues because it gives me an opportunity to play against a lot of these great players that I just haven't had the opportunity to play against otherwise. Rob has a pretty fun ORAS team here, headlined by the likes of Mew, Heatran, Azu, Mega Aerodactyl, Diggersby, Drapion, Mismagius, and Chestnut. So very annoying team, but I actually do like our squad into this one a lot. You see our Mega Gardevoir in the first slot. It's actually going to be a sub-Protect variant. Protect is just to guarantee my Mega off if I need to into like faster Drapions and things of the sort. So I can guarantee get that speed boost and throw off some strong attacks. Same thing with a Mew. If it is like a slower Mew but faster than base guard, I want to be able to outpace that thing after my Mega Evolution. Sub is also obviously very nice in force switches. If we force out Pokemon like Chestnut, get up a free sub, it's a guaranteed KO. Hidden Power Ground is obviously going to hit the Heatran that might want to switch into us, and other than that, we kind of just click Hyper Voice into everything else. We don't really need to get cute with it. Everything just dies to the move Hyper Voice. Protect is also nice at scouting choice items and things of the sort. Crocodile is going to be our next Pokemon here. It's going to be one of our main Mega Aerodactyl checks, which is very scary. Also sub-checks Pokemon like Diggersby, which is a big problem to this team. We have Earthquake, Knockoff, Stealth Rock, and Toxic. Very bulky on this set. It's really here to get up rocks, pivot, and get some Helmet Chip, and knock some items, and be a general nuisance in that regard. Toxic is great at putting things like Mew, as well as Crocodile on a timer, potentially. First, we have the first little bit of priority on our team, which you see is a big theme in our Choice Band Scizor. Bullet Punch, U-Turn, Superpower, and Aerialize. Aerialize just gives us an OHKO on Chestnut, just like an absolute nuke on it. Superpower is great into the Heatran, and honestly, once Heatran goes down, our Bullet Punch is such a strong endgame win condition. Choice Band, Adamant, Bullet Punch does so much damage to anything not Heatran. If it gets a thing with a Superpower once, we're in a great spot. Also, just catching with U-Turns puts us in a great spot offensively as well. Next up, we have our Qwilfish here, which is going to be a Spikes variant. Again, Rocky Helmet with Poison Jab, Thunder Wave, Spikes, and Aqua Jet. T-Wave is great for speed control into the likes of things like Aerodactyl. Aqua Jet is great for little bits of priority into things like Heatran, as well as the Diggersby, especially Poison Jab. Just nice general stab. This is our main Azu check as well. Wanted to not lose to Belly Drum Azu, so a very physically defensive Qwilfish to deter against that. It didn't end up coming, but nice nonetheless. Then we have a Assault Vest Conk, Drain Punch, Knockoff, Mach Punch, and Poison Jab. Strong Pokemon. We're actually very weak to Smagius on this team, considering we're Phys Def Crook and I don't want it to take any damage. So this kind of covered that, as well as giving us strong priority to Revenge Diggersby, and just a strong Pokemon in general. It also pivots on Heatran, which nothing on our team does otherwise. So that's obviously very nice. And then Life Orb Darm. Really strong Pokemon. If we don't see Lead Arrow, which we have an immediate pivot into in our Crook, we actually just kind of kill something with Lead Life Orb Darm. So that's kind of the idea behind the team. And yeah, that being said, let's jump into it. So we're going to see Lead Heatran into our Lead Darm. That's great for me. Like I said, this is Life Orb, Sheer Force, Darm. This does crazy damage with Edgequake coverage plus Flare Blitz. We're just going to click Earthquake this turn. If it's not Shuka, it dies. We live a Scarf hit. We might not live Scarf Earth Power, but I actually don't remember that calc, to be honest with you. But we do just click Earthquake. We see that it is Shuka, and we get up rocks right here. Now, if Rob would like to save this, is still fine for me. My Choice Band Scizor endgame looks very plausible now, and there's also just simply not a Hyper Voice resist. I don't have to click Hidden Power Ground ever in this game now, which is pretty funny. I'm gonna Rock Slide here. I already showed that I wasn't choiced my Life Orb chip, so I might as well just like punish a super over aggressive Aerodactyl, as that's the only like ground resist that can pivot in that isn't just blown up by Flare Blitz or like Revenge afterwards. So we're just gonna Rock Slide. Thankfully we at least hit when he sacks off the Heatran. Out comes the Aerodactyl. I'm gonna save this. I have my Crook, and this is my Rock's opportunity, as this thing does go ahead, Mega Evolve, and clicks Earthquake. Does absolutely nothing. We're gonna see an Aqua Tail miss, which is unfortunate for him. I did live that guarantee. My main goal was to get up rocks, but hey, if I can now use this as an opportunity to get some more Intip pivot play, that's great for me. As we see another Aqua Tail into my Qwilfish. Now it's at -2, so the Earthquakes are doing like 30%, which is great. There's no Azu, so I'm completely fine with sacking this thing to get up some hazards. In hindsight, maybe T-Waving was the play on this second turn, really taking Aerodactyl out of this game completely. and then spiking the turn afterwards, but I didn't think he'd risk it taking a spike, and I wanted to get up a second spike and then potentially a third one on like a chestnut pivot or something of the sort. So not the end of the world though. I do just get some Aqua Jet chip, only 28 because I am a Quillfish, but it's better than nothing, right? Which is great in considering we have rocks up. So we're just going to come out, and again, nothing really wants to switch into this. We're going to see chestnut come in, take the 2 spike and rocks as we get off a bullet punch, do 29. So next time it comes in, it is 2-hit KO. There just is no switch into this Pokemon. We're going to save it now though. There's no reason to let him chip us down or get off a lead seed. Darm's going to come out and just claim a KO. Nothing switches into Flare Blitz with rocks and 2 spikes up. I mean, nothing switched in with rocks up, to be honest with you, much less the 2 spikes and the arrow being at 50%. So nice little KO for Darm. And we can kind of just use it to sack it off here. Arrow's the only thing that guaranteed outspeeds us outside of a, faster Mew, which this tells me it probably isn't, because now we have to take rocks on Arrow. And again, I get a KO with Choice Band Bullet Punch. We're going to come in, click the Bullet Punch, down goes the arrow. We do have to be careful. There are lots of hazards up on our side of the field, but you can say the same thing about his, right? The game's just going pretty quickly. We're going to Bullet Punch this Mew right here. Hindsight, I could have switched out, but if anything has to take the burn, I'm kind of okay with Scizor doing so. Getting off damage, gauging and seeing what this thing is, because what it also does is it gives me a free entry point with my guard, which can likely take advantage of these physically defensive sets that might come to check Scizor that just came in right here. And it prevents him from setting up if he's a setup variant. I can just Bullet Punch twice. So I do think that it's just the safest play, despite this endgame being kind of free with Bullet Punch. I only have one more like real switch in anyways, especially with the helmet spam that he has. He's going to roost here as I do just die to my burn. But like I said, this is that guard entry point. And I know this is a max physically defensive Mew. I'm just going to go ahead and click Substitute right here. No reason not to, in my opinion. Drapion comes out, and if this is like an offensive Scarf Drapion, this will die. Unfortunately, it's not. It's very bulky, very specially defensive, but after 2 spikes and rocks, it definitely dies to 2. So we'll just go ahead and click it again. We know we're faster. Out comes Diggersby. We have a very free Crocodile Sack right here. We get an Intim Pivot as well as some Helmet Chip if he does elect to go for the return, which is his strongest move. It does crit and kill me. It would have 2-hit KO'd, so I would have gotten more Hazard Chip, which is unfortunate, but again, not the end of the world. We know Conk can come out right here and just click a very free knockoff. This Mew's at 75. It comes in, rock 2 spikes, dies. This Diggersby also doesn't kill me. If I knock off its Scarf, my guard also wins. So knockoff is just downside free. Mew does pivot out right here. I see it drop down below 50. We're still an Adamant Conk, even if we're AFE. Down goes the Mew. Take a little bit of helmet, and again, obviously the game is over from there. He does end up forfeiting, and obviously there's no like BM. It's fine, Conk just Mach Punch. It's the same thing in the end of the day. So we'll take it. Just Rob, a little bit lucky that game, but I still think we played really well, so I'm happy with it. Big bounce back from the prior week. Yeah, on to USUM. Already week 6, end of the second cycle of the league, and we're going up against Kaz himself. Again, a good buddy of mine and a great draft league player. He has a pretty fun team here in USUM, full of a ton of big threats. It's been a while since... No, the last time me and Kaz played actually was in USUM. It was in Goons League. I uploaded a movie on that. It was an USUM league. It wasn't like in USUM. That's not what I meant. But it was an USUM league in which he beat us in finals. So he beat us twice that season. So I'd really like to get the win, obviously, in this one. He has the king of Gen 7 Draft League in Landers Therian, which can Z, as well as Keldeo, Victini, Slowbro, Mega Aggron, Amoonguss, Hoopa, U, and Electivire. We see no Victini or Amoonguss in this game, and instead we see an Electivire coming off the bench, which I was very concerned about when it first happened, because I didn't dedicate a lot of prep to Electivire, to be honest with you. But hey, it's something we could deal with. It's an Electivire, right? This is the last game where I actually still have my builder for some reason, because I probably uploaded it to the database for some reason, because I built it at school, whatever. But on the team we have right here, we have a 3 attacks Stealth Rocking Diancie. Just didn't feel like I'd comfortably fit rocks on anything else in this game. So we are Moonblast, Power Gem, Earth Power, and Stealth Rock. Still really strong offensively in this game. We have an Autotomize Komodo with Dragonium Z, Cling Scales, Flamethrower, Draco Meteor, and Autotomize. The reason we have Draco as well is because it gives us some pretty nasty calcs with Dragonium Z into the bulkier things on his team, into things like Slowbro, into things like Landorus, into things like Hoopa, into things like Keldeo. It can put Okos on those guys damn near, depending on their sets, and do crazy damage, and otherwise we can Autotomize and Clang Scales and Flamethrower through pretty much everything. We have a Rocky Helmet, pretty bulky but pretty offensive Zapdos here with Thunderbolt, Hidden Power, Ice U-Turn, and Roost. Solid Mon, punishes physical attackers, pretty strong offensively in this game too. Then we have a Magma Storm, Toxic Protect, Heatran, pretty much max Spadef, check special Hoopas, as well as even soft checking things like Slowbro. If we can force that guy in, Magma Storm, Toxic Protect, it's basically a dead Mon, and this isn't Gen 8, so there's no teleport, don't have to worry about that. We We then have a Colbur Berry, Decidueye, Energy Ball, Shadow Ball, Nasty Plot, and Roost. Salamon in general in this battle, soft checks Pokemon like the Landorus. Can set up on his fat core of like Slowbro, Mega Aggron, and Amoonguss and like kind of nasty plot up. If Hoopa is chipped enough and we can live a hit with our Colbur Berry, we can kill it with a +2 Energy Ball. Has to be pretty chipped. Hoopa's really fat. But yeah, overall solid mon. Colbur gives us a way of taking Landor's knockoff, and knockoff EQ is really strong into our team. Knockoff EQ Stone Edge and Decidueye can kind of help mitigate that. And then we also have a choice banded Mamoswine here with Earthquake, Crash, Knockoff, and Shard. Pretty simple set, good revenge killer. Makes it to where we never lose to Landorus, and as long as we get any chip on Hoopa, we also never lose to Hoopa, which I like as well. Yeah, with that being said, let's jump right into it. I actually wanted to lead off immediately with my Komodo here because I really wanted to punish potentially like lead Landorus, lead Slowbro, more passive leads. We do see lead Keldeo, which I'm also completely fine with because I know I can live one hit from this thing and just Z Draco and do a ton of damage. As we do see it go ahead and Calm Mind turn 1, which is a little bit worrying. Now I know I definitely do not kill with my Devastating Drake, do a lot of damage, and from here, after 67%, I'm like, okay, I live any one hit. Let's go ahead and just Draco Meteor, try and pick this KO or put it very low. Unfortunately, Hidden Power is going to come out, and we do miss our Draco Meteor, which is a little unfortunate. Clayton Scales obviously didn't kill from there, so I couldn't go for that. Decidueye is going to be able to come out right here. It's Surf Pops. Reflect's going to come out, as I assume he expected potentially a Leaf Blade. I believe it was Weakness Policy I saw afterwards, so it's probably very, very, very defensive. But we're Energy Ball, thankfully, and we are able to knock it out from that range. Next up, Decidueye is going to switch out on the incoming Hoopa, as Reflect is up. And we don't do any damage with our Energy Ball. It does end up showing Sub and Leftovers. I know that my Draco Meteor can guarantee break said Sub, as it does just Psychic and pick me off. Didn't really worry about like setup variants or anything like that from there. Diancie is going to pivot out next as Aggron does come out itself. I am just going to go ahead and Stealth Rock, stay on Mega to not take a ton of damage if it does elect to stay in, because I know I won't die to Leftovers Hoopa. Maybe Earth Power was just a better play overall, but I wanted to cover like specially defensive Landorus coming in. I figured just getting my rocks was guaranteed value out of that turn. If I, for some reason, got, you know, the prediction that he'd switch out wrong. And again, if I Earth-Powered into that Aggron, he'd be in a bad spot. So I thought maybe he wouldn't risk it, but not the end of the world. Zapdos is going to come out. It always pivots out on this thing pretty darn comfortably. As Electivire is going to come out on my U-turn. Again, I expect either Landorus or Electivire to come out. It does end up being Helmet, which is smart. It's kind of here just like perma-punish my Zapdos, but the U-turn rocks does put this thing in range of an Earth Power guaranteed, and he just doesn't have an answer to Diancie. We see that the Landorus didn't come out the first time, so that leads me to believe this is not especially defensive. I switch into Diancie Landorus, so I just Earth Power, hits it kills the Electivire as well. Aggron comes out, it is just going to be 2 KO'd from this range. Down goes Aggron, which is great for us, right? Next up, Landorus Therian comes out. We have our pivot of Zapdos. We also have our pivot of Decidueye, but I make a little bit more of an offensive play and go Mamoswine, as it punished this thing potentially setting up, which it did right here. I knew we could always take one hit and Ice Shard potentially try and revenge it. Slowbro is going to pivot out on us as they do Shard, showing that it is pretty physically defensive, and showing Leftovers, so don't have to worry about Helmet. Zapdos is going to be our pivot out of choice, as a Future Sight does go into the air. Again, not the greatest thing in the world. Electivire is going to pivot out right here, as I believe I do go ahead and Roost, get my Zapdos back to full, and what I can do is U-turn, get a little bit more chip, maybe just going hard, Decidueye is fine, but despite being able to potentially take this Ice Punch, we are going to die to the Future Sight. And again, the combination of Freeze didn't matter, obviously. Future Sight plus Ice Punch was really strong in that instance. Didn't want to risk my Heatran. Diancie's going to come out next. I have a very free Moonblast every time I come in for the rest of this game. Down it goes. Landorus is going to pivot out next, and we do not know if this is Choice Scarf Landorus, or we do not know if this thing... No, sorry. We know, goodness, that this Landorus can still take a Moonblast pretty comfortably, probably for my Diancie if he came out this confidently on me. So I am going to make the pivot out into Zapdos, as it covers an EQ coming out, as well as him potentially setting up a Rock Polish. We are fast Zapdos too, so we are going to be able to outspeed this thing. Put an Empower Ice on this thing, which shows it is also Yachi Berry, so good to know. Stone Edge is going to take me out, but that's fine. I've done my job, right? Diancie's going to be able to come back out once again, claim a KO, as it has done every single time up to this point. We're going to see Slowbro pivot out next, as I am going to make the hard play of Heatran. Heatran the Water Resist, by the way, guys. I want you to look at the Scald damage. Never let anybody tell that Heatran isn't broken. Gonna take some Scald there. Nice little 4-hit KO after lefties. Get off a nice little Toxic into this Slowbro. And from here, I can really, really start whittling this down. And my goal is to put this thing in range of the combination of Diancie plus Mamoswine. And what we're going to be able to do here, as this Future Sight pops, is I'm going to go ahead and click Magma Storm the upcoming turn. Hoopa is going to go ahead and come out. That's fine with me. Take a lot of chip damage. And then from there, we can go ahead and protect. Just basically sack off our Heatran to find the position back into the Ante. And once we get there, we'll show you what I'm talking about. Future Sight obviously does hit us afterwards as we throw off that protect. And this upcoming turn, we are going to die to a Hidden Power Ground. Good night, Heatran. And from here, though, we can go right out into Deancey. We just have to prevent sub. Deancey will pick a KO either on this Hoopa or the Slowbro will be 2-hit KO'd upon switch-in, which means Deancey would win. If he stays in, sacks off this Hoopa, goes Slowbro the next turn. Yes, Slowbro will live a Moonblast from here pretty comfortably, 58%. But from there, we know for a fact that this is leftovers. We can go in, click Choice Band Knockoff with our Mamoswine and secure a nice little 1-0 victory in a game which I think we played pretty darn well. Again, against a really good player. Beating Rob into Kaz was a great kind of like bounce back for the season when up to that point, I believe we were 2-2. Now we're sitting at 4-2. Looking really good. We just have to win likely one of our next 3 games, but 2 would guarantee us for playoffs. So that's what we're going to be shooting for. We're going to be shooting for winning all 3, to be honest with you. But we at least need 1, probably, or we at least need 2, probably just 1. But yeah, that being said, back to ADV, baby. Alrighty, we got week 7 against Love Chance. Remember when I said I didn't have any more of my builds? I at least have the Mons, no EVs, like in movesets of this build. So that's obviously nice. We're going against Love Chance here. And he has Raikou. And if you remember to the draft analysis little portion, we talked about always having a Raikou check and making sure you had something to deal with it. And we have our Meganium. So we pull the Raikou matchup and we have an answer to it at least. Or at least an on-paper answer to it at the very least. So we are playing against Raikou, Swampert, Dragonite, Quillfish, Arcanine, Hitmontop, Mischievous, and Stantler. Lots of big threats. Dragonite's really strong here. Arcanine's really strong here. Swampert is annoying, just like it was in week number 4. So, gotta be careful about that, obviously. But yeah, our team, we have a lead Ment. We are actually just sub 3. Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and Hidden Power Grass with sub. Really strong, exerts a lot of pressure, really punishes passive play from him. And we have a Chesto Berry Meganium with a Hidden Power Grass, Leech Seed, Earthquake, and Rest. It's literally here to pivot into Raikou for a couple times. We also have a Surf, Ice Beam, Recover, Refresh, Milotic. Very bulky, very strong, very annoying for him. A Seismic Toss, Earthquake, Toxic, Protect, Registeel, also especially defensive. Another Pokemon that can take on Raikou in a pinch, at least decently well. Maybe not the best if it's like Calm Mind, but we'll see. Then we also have Ice Beam, Earthquake, Spikes, Explosion, Glalie. Mid-game Spikes, always nice. And then a Thunderbolt, Ice Punch, Toxic, and Hidden Power Ground. Electabuzz. HP Ground, I'm trying to think of what HP Ground was even for. Oh, it was for Raikou, so Raikou didn't sub on me. Haha, so why the hell did I have HP Ground? Thunderbolt has to be stronger than that on Arcanine, but yeah, that's why. That being said, let's jump right in. So we do see Arcanine lead into my Ments. Unfortunately, not the best lead for me in the world, as I am going to make the pivot out into my Milotic, as a Thief pops, and it steals my leftovers. Cool tech, no more lefties on my Milotic. We're just going to go ahead and throw off a Surf. Quillfish, not the bulkiest Pokemon in the world, so we are going to go ahead and get off nice 34% on that guy. Pivot back out into our Ments as a Spike pops. We're going to go ahead and sub here, as it covers a Toxic, it covers a Boom, and lets me scout and see if he has Ice Beam, as we actually see a Boom here, so KO number 1 to Ments, which is obviously really nice. Raikou's going to come out right here as I do pivot into my Registeel. A little bit of an aggressive play, but I figured Hidden Power Ice or Toxic was coming out, so going hard Meganium wasn't a great idea, as I do catch a Toxic and get off a Toxic of my own into this Swampert, which is great. Pivot out into my Glalie, make a little bit of an aggressive play instead of protecting. Earthquake does come out, does a ton of damage, but really I just need 1 Spike in this battle, and we're in so much better of a position, as I do get up 1 Spike on the Arcanine switching. Raikou is going to go ahead and double out as I come into my Milotic, so good play on Chance part, catching me, pivoting out into my Fire Resist once again, as I showed that was my initial resist. I'm going to go Meganium this time, as I don't expect a HP Ice or a Toxic on the switch-in. Gonna go ahead and miss my Leech Seed as I get Toxic. Not great, not the end of the world. Hidden Power Ice is going to come out here, do 34. I get off a Leech Seed right here, and you're going to see after the Toxic Chip and the leftovers, I am at 33, or after the Toxic Chip and the Leech Seed, I am at 33%, meaning this Hidden Power Ice is a roll. I don't really have use for my Meganium at this low anyways, there's no reason to save it, so if I live the hit, I can get off a rest. If not, I'm going to go ahead and get off, if not, I die or they switch, and I get off my rest. So we're going to see the Arcanine come out as I do get off said rest, which is really, really nice. Pop my Chesto, gives me another pivot into Raikou, as well as the Swampert, which is great for me. We're going to see a double out as I go into my Ments right here. Swampert is going to be the pivot of choice. We're going to see it gets a little bit toxic and leftovers back. And again, I'm just going to sub. Reason being is I want to guarantee put this thing in range of a Hidden Power Grass. It punishes any pivots out on a Hidden Power Grass into the likes of Arcanine, into the likes of Raikou, or whatever he has in the back. And again, it just passively racks up that Toxic tip that we got with our Registeel in order to put him in range of that Hidden Power. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute. Toxic pops. We're going to go ahead and avoid that. And from here, it is time to put on some crazy damage. We're going to go ahead and Hidden Power Grass, guarantee knock out this Swampert after that chip. Arcanine is going to be the pivot of choice. As his next turn, we are just going to go ahead and Earthquake once. As the Hidden Power Ice pops, does break our sub here, but again, we're faster. We've gotten all of our leftovers back. We don't have to worry about taking hazards. This is Gen 3, no rocks. Gonna go ahead and get off another Earthquake, and that's 3 KOs for Big Ments. Raikou is going to be the pivot of choice. Again, I think I make an aggressive pivot, going to my Registeel, expecting a Hidden Power Ice or a Toxic. Toxic does come out, again, putting us in a phenomenal position, as Thunderbolt is just going to come out. I do just click Earthquake, does a ton of damage to this, punishes really any switch-ins. He doesn't have great switch-ins and ways of dealing with Registeel. As another Thunderbolt comes out, I believe a Seismic Toss, as Seismic Toss is a 2-hit KO and gets consistent damage on everything coming in. Protect here, get a little greedy, don't really worry about like sub variants anymore, or Calm Mind variants anymore. As another Thunderbolt is going to pop, I Earthquake, take out the Raikou. Again, in a good position. Him on top is going to be the pivot out of choice, but this is completely fine with me, as while Registeel doesn't beat it, our Ment does beat this thing. Very comfortably, in fact. Looking at him on top's move pool, there's actually nothing this thing can do to beat our Salamence once we set up this substitute. So Hidden Power is going to pop. It is a neutral Hidden Power, probably like some kind of Ghost or something of the sorts. And from here, it's just a matter of clicking attacks with Ments until we win. Keep in mind there is a potential Dragonite in the back, so I do want to end this interaction with a substitute up, if at all possible. Hidden Power is going to pop here. Again, we're just going to Dragon Claw, and again, we can always play this incredibly safe and completely lock down this game. Now, we still have a full health Milotic that can very easily check the Dragonite, but might as well take our diff if we can get it, and get our Goat some more KOs if we can get it. As we're going to go ahead, Dragon Claw, knock out the Him on top. Out comes the Dragonite last. It doesn't die to 1 Dragon Claw, as we're not the strongest special attacker in the world, but it takes enough to where we can very easily kill it. DD doesn't save it, and there ain't no scale shot this gen, so we're very safe behind our substitute. Knock out the Dragonite, and we're able to take home a nice 6-0 victory in week number 7 of the Hoenn Khlazic, which is awesome. Great for the ego. Again, like I said, diff doesn't matter, but taking a 6-0 win after beating Rob into Kaz is pretty fire for me. Again, we're at 5-2. Very likely to have playoffs clinch. One more guarantee seals it, but we're looking pretty okay at this point. But I also want to finish as high up in the standings as we can, right? Get a better seed. So, yeah, that said, week number 8 upcoming. Alrighty, week 8, we're going up against J-Scurf, top 5 all time, the GOAT. And we don't have an Alamole, so what the hell are we going to do in J-Scurf? Now, something else we don't have into J-Scurf is going to be a Flying Resist. So the Torn is looking especially scary on the opposing side. And you see J-Scurf obviously identifies that as well. Mega Medicham never has switch-ins. We don't switch into Nidoking very well. And we don't switch into Azel very well. So defensively, this matchup isn't great. However, offensively, it's incredible. Look at our Gardevoir. The combination of Hyper Voice, Psyshock just kills every single Pokemon. Scizor is actually pretty darn strong. It usually is. Things like Blastoise are the only pivots in, and it gets shipped down pretty easily. Scarf Gengar and Scarf Croak make a great Scarf or speed duo that kind of just win the game on their own. Scarf Gengar, pretty easy to get to win in this game, to be honest with you. And Scarf Moxie Croak is great with knockoff, as well as Crunch in this matchup because of the fact that the Medicham will not be holding an item. Knockoff doesn't do that much, so I liked having a dark move that I could consistently click in this battle. Then we have a Rocky Helmet, Noivern and Mint to kind of like pivot in on many fighting moves like once. Like any non-Ice Punch, which Ice Punch is like a hard click into me. Take a hit, get some Helmet Chip, really important for certain calcs into this team. And then AV Conk is here to pivot into Nidoking, and we also have an AV Scizor to take 2 offensive Torn Hurricanes, maybe get a knockoff off, and just be generally strong, you know, in general in this matchup. So it was just a better item than Akka, in my opinion. As you'll see why here immediately. We're going to lead off with our Scizor into the Torn. I figured Torn would lead because it OHKOs everything on my team, and nothing on my team OHKOs it. Therefore, if I can stay in with Scizor, live a Heat Wave, and get a knockoff into this thing, I'm kind of chilling, sitting in a good spot. You see a Hurricane immediately miss. I would have lived that as I am AV, but it's really nice for me because I get to knock off the specs, get off a Bullet Punch, put this thing at 21. This Hurricane now does not 2-hit KO me, and now I can play a little bit more aggressively and get off a U-turn into this Blastoise. What this is going to allow me to do is get into Gardevoir, and again, identify the switch-ins. Florges can come in and take 2 Hyper Voices pretty comfortably, but it does not take a Psyshock comfortably at all. So we can kind of just click Hyper Voice into Psyshock on everything. Nidoking is going to make an aggressive pivot out, and this takes a ton of damage. Now, I'm not super worried about Payapa here, but what I am worried about is the potential Choice Scarf variant, and I don't want to just sack my Gardevoir and being greedy turn 4 when it is this powerful in this battle. So I'm going to pivot out of my guard, go out into Conk as this takes us on, and get to mid-ground Shadow Ball. The reason J-Scarf Shadow Ball is there too is in case, you know, any of you are newer players or you forgot, Gengar has Levitate in this generation. So Earth Power wouldn't have been able to hit it. Resist Sludge Wave. It's actually a decent, like, one-time Nidoking pivot. So makes sense. That would have blown my Gengar ass backwards. But we're able to get into Conk, which can exert some offensive pressure right here. Florges is going to be the pivot out here, as I believe I do just Ice Punch. I believe Ice Punch trying to catch... no, not just punishing the Nidoking if it stays in and killing it, as well as like killing Torn, I guess, but it's really just Nidoking staying in. Which is going to go ahead and pop, as I believe I do Poison Jab, pop a Kebia Berry, which is really nice for my Gengar in case this is like a Psychic Florges, as I am going to make the pivot out into my Gardevoir this turn on a potential Protect. Protect does pop right here, which is great for me. And again, now it's Gardevoir time. We're going to see a Nidoking pivot out. That does not switch into Psyshock, my friend. It is going to die. Was not Payapa like I thought. Probably a Scarf variant if I had to guess. As I was going to be a pivot, I bit on a Scizor on an Iron Tail. I'd be lying to you if I thought Iron Tail was coming out right here. It was more so that I thought Boom was coming out. I kind of forgot this guy got Iron Tail. I thought it was just like trying to boom and die and kill me with it, which is decently fair, and this just covered that, and this guy isn't very needed anymore. As Iron Tail does pop, gets a crit, obviously it doesn't matter. What a 2-hit KO me with whatever moves it wants to click anyways. Shows Life Orb, and I'm going to make an aggressive play right here. I don't think J-Scarf's going to want to sack off this Azelf, as it's really his best means of revenging my guard at this point, because Torn doesn't kill. Depending on if he's Bullet Punch Medi, I don't even think Medi kills from full, to be honest with you. So I figured he'd want to keep this guy, plus it's just strong offensively in general. So I'm going to make a double back out into my Gardevoir, as I can just throw off a Hyper Voice here into the Blastoise, do a ton of damage, take a Toxic, which is completely fine with me. And this upcoming turn, just throw off another one, right? I could throw off a Psyshock there in hindsight, but it just covered and did the most damage. I don't know. We're kind of autopilot at this point, right? We're in a really good position. And you see Hyper Voice plus Toxic is just going to knock out this thing the next turn. Still fine. I'm going to sack my Scizor to this Azelf right here. So it makes an aggressive play, gets up Stealth Rock, which is really nice. I wanted to keep my guard because if it wasn't Bullet Punch Many, there's still a Speed Tie opportunity, which could obviously be nice. And, you know, it can potentially dodge one and kill Torn if need be. But I do see this as an opportunity to get in my Crocodile as I sack off my Scizor to this Blastoise. I'm going to be able to get a Moxie boost immediately with a Crunch, which is really, really nice. Medi is going to come out. Crunch is nicer in this endgame, obviously, because we've knocked off this item. This guy doesn't have an item. But what this does is forces in Medi, right? Medi has to come in and has to click Fighting Move or he loses, right? Can't really play aggressively otherwise. And we are going to see I'm going to make the pivot down to Noivern, take Rocks, but we're pretty bulky on this Noivern. First the Medicham, obviously, and take a Drain Punch, which is great for me, as this Helmet Chip is really going to be paramount for +1 Crocodile to be able to win this game soon. Going to go ahead and click Air Slash. It is a 2-hit KO in this Torn right here. Pick this KO right here. Azelf is going to come out. Unfortunately, we missed an Air Slash. It's not the end of the world. That didn't kill, and we die anyways, because this is just going to kind of set up that end game that I was looking for. In my Crocodile coming in and clicking +1 Crunch, we kill pretty much every Medi ever, and even then if we don't, we have Gengar to revenge afterwards, so it was fine, but we're able to secure 4-0 victory here against top 5 GOAT J-Scarf. And yeah, Puncher tickets to playoffs at 6-2 guaranteed. I think we were fine before that, but now it's like set in stone. We are good to go. But yeah, that being said, let's jump into week number 9, last game of regular season. Alrighty, week number 9 against Austrian George, another great player. Now, in this game in particular, it's important to know that me and George were very likely to potentially play in playoffs. So, in this matchup, I really built this team really quickly, kind of hyper offense it out, bought some fun stuff because I didn't want to reveal too much in case we end up playing in playoffs and playing USUM again. So kind of just wanted to avoid that. You can see George has a pretty scary team, likes of Z Mew, Ferrothorn, Weavile, Gliscor, Mega Altaria, and Suicune. Some big threats, but I think we can overwhelm him with our offense. In particular, things to note about this matchup though, Mew, very scary if it's a setup variant, and Weavile has like no counterplay on my team. My team is so weak to Weavile. You saw not drafting like a bulky water on our USUM team has really kind of bit us in the ass this season. I love this team outside of that fact. Like, it really, really struggled with a lot of these scary offensive waters, a lot of these scary offensive fires, offensive ices were really scary. Like, big issues for our team in particular. So we'll see what we can do, though. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Oh, I guess I should give a quick rundown. We have a Spikes, I believe it's Spikes SD, Scolipede, Rock Polish, Calm Mind, DNC, Nasty Plot, Yachi, or Nasty Plot, I think it's either Yachi or Leftovers, Giga Drain, Channel Ball, Roost, Decidueye as our main Suicune counterplay. We are, I believe, just DD3, Komodo, Screen Zapdos with Light Skin Reflect, U-Turn, and Discharge, and then Choice Banded Mamoswine as a great revenge tool and a really strong Pokemon in this matchup. I mean, nothing switches to Mamoswine. So, yeah, that being said, let's jump into it. So we see Weavile lead into Scolipede. I'm completely fine with this. I can go ahead and just get off a Spike, as we do see a knockoff. Figured Knock was a little bit freer than Crash. Crash led in Mamoswine, and that's potentially just a KO into his team, so he's got to be careful about that. And Knock does not KO me here, which is absolutely incredible. Figured he probably doesn't want to risk sacking his Weavile as well. I didn't think he'd risk Sash Scolipede either, to be honest with you, with how strong Weavile is, and that shows he was banded, so he was willing to just kind of like sack his Weavile, which is good to know. But yeah, I'm just going to get up a second Spike. Gliscor comes in, and I'm just going to get up a third one, right? No reason not to in this matchup. Earthquake is going to go ahead and kill me, but I can just get into Mamoswine. And again, 3 spikes, Mamoswine, give me 1, right? Just kidding. Oh my gosh, this game was a while ago. I'm going to get up Rocks right here. Rocks plus 3 spikes is really going to limit the switches and things like Weavile. It's going to punch that Altaria on the initial switch in, and then when it megas, it's going to still take 3 spikes and Rocks anyway, so that's obviously very, very nice for me. And again, more punishing for things like Suicune and Mew and things of the sort. So Fizzdef Ferrothorn's probably going to come in right here. Shows Leftovers. I get onto my Komodo right here, and I'm fine with close combat here. Not much really switches into Komodo in general. We have Ironhead for the Mega Altaria afterwards if we need to. We see a Toxic come out into the Ferrothorn, which is, again, completely fine. Gliscor is going to be the pivot of choice. I believe I do just click close combat. Get off a decent little chip of damage, 21. Again, I'm just trying to rack up as much damage as possible. Really set up that Diancie endgame. If I can Rock Polish him with Diancie, I'm going to be in a great spot. This Ferrothorn is already killed, put in range. Gliscor, pretty darn soon. And then it's just a matter of getting up a Rock Polish, making sure Mew and Suicune are in range, and we win the game pretty comfortably. So I do just Dragon Claw on this Mew as it comes in. Shows to be pretty much max Fizzdef at this point. This next turn, I am going to go for a little bit of cheese. I just Ironhead, right? The way I see it, Dragon Claw, get back to full. Ironhead, I have a flinch chance. You're going to get back up to full anyways as you roost afterwards. And if you don't and you stay at 60, that's great for me, as you'll see. Thankfully, we get pretty damn lucky. Get that flinch there. What this is going to allow to do, it's going to allow our Mamoswine to come in. I know this is max Fizzdef. I can click Choice Band Earthquake and kill it. Or, this is a, sorry, Life Orb Earthquake. And just kill it from full, which is great for me. Out comes Suicune. I could just stay in, get off some damage with EQ, as I don't think this is going to be fast, but I decided Decidueye is probably my best bet. This is what Decidueye is here for. It takes nothing from Surf, and I can just Nasty Plot up and kind of exert some pressure. Weavile can't really ever switch hard in on me with 3 spikes and rocks, and if it does, great. It's done that, right? And that's awesome for me. Otherwise, I can just Nasty Plot up and exert some pressure. If something like Altaria wants to come hard out, I'll live 1 hit from full and throw off +2 Shadow Ball. I take on Gliscor. You know, we're in a pretty good spot with this Nasty Plot. So I am just going to go ahead and Nasty Plot up. We see a Calm Mind from George as I do just Giga Drain. Get back 60%, which is great, or do 60%, get back a ton of health. And since it Calm Minded is going to be able to live and hit me with a hard Ice Beam back, but we're very specially defensive. We're able to eat that up pretty comfortably, KO this, and force in that Weavile right here instead of the Altaria, which is awesome, making it to where this thing only has 1 more switch in as it knocks off, kills me from there. And again, keep in mind, I know that this is Choice Band Weavile. So what I'm going to do right here is I know I live this knockout from here, guaranteed. What my play right here is to do is to eat this knockoff, go for U-turn, because it's going to punish any switch-in, very much so. Gliscor, then I go into Mamoswine, Altaria, then I go into Diancie, or this thing, it's locked into knockoff, and I can use this as my opportunity to set up and win the game with Diancie. So I am going to go ahead and get out into Zapdos. Knockoff comes out, eat that up. We do get a static pair, which is really, really nice for us. Going to U-turn out. It's going to be on 1 HP. Can't come back in, obviously, after a U-turn. And I'm just going to start Calm Minding. There's no reason for me to Rock Polish anymore, as I am fast on everything. I get it to +2 because it covers max Spadef Gliscor, and they didn't switch out the first time. It's completely fine with me. Now I'm going to go ahead and just Mega, and we're just going to go ahead and end it. Nice and simple. That thing's going to die. Gliscor comes out, even max special defense, dies from 70. Just going to click that plus 2 Moonblast, and then obviously Mega Altaria. More of the same. So a little bit fortunate in that game. I wouldn't say super lucky. I think anytime you're able to get up 3 spikes and rocks, and especially in a generation with no boots, you're probably going to be in a good position to win the game later. The flinch was definitely unfortunate. I think I was fine regardless with the U-turn play. I don't think the static actually mattered at all. But yeah, we're able to win the game, move on to 7-2 for the season, I believe that was, and move into playoffs. In playoffs round 1, we were matched up against Austrian George. So I'm glad I didn't super sweat out the team because we were able to save some things for playoffs potentially and really analyze the matchup a little bit more in depth as we go into there. Now, before we jump into playoffs, it's kind of important to know how the Hoenn Khlazic does it. The way it is it's best of 3. So you have the potential of using all 3 of your teams in every round of playoffs. The higher seed picks the first format. So in this upcoming instance, I picked ORAS. The reason I picked ORAS is because George's ADV team was really good. You've been talking recently in the chat how confident he was in his ADV team. I'm not super confident in ADV, and we just played USUM. So I wanted to pick ORAS because I felt like I could win ORAS and then put myself in a position to just win one of the next 2, and we'd be good to go. So I picked ORAS. Then the loser of game 1 will pick the format for 2, and if there is a loser of game 2 that doesn't result in the end of the series, that person will then decide game 3. So that's kind of how it goes. And yeah, that being said, we're gonna jump right into playoffs. Alrighty, playoffs. Here we are against George. You see he has the ever-famed Yard Crest Core. The Keegan special. Alongside Pokemon like Staraptor, which I really don't switch into super well. Thundy T, and if you remember when we played Thundy I, didn't switch into Thundy I well, so Thundy T is a problem. And Polion and Alakazam, which is another really fun Pokemon. I think Sash is really strong here. However, if we look at it, once again, we have another very strong Mega Gardevoir matchup. I believe we are just Calm Mind in this game. I believe we're Calm Mind Focus Blast. I think, let me double check actually, I have the technology. I'm pretty sure he also had access to Ferrothorn on his ORAS build. Let me double check before I'm capping. Yeah, there was also a Ferrothorn. Oh, it's Zard X. I'm so sorry. It's not Yard. If only, right? You see, would be broken. But we're Hyper Voice, Calm Mind. What do you? I think we're sub Calm Mind. Calm Mind sub Hyper Voice Focus Blast in this game, if I'm remembering right. Just a helmet, spiking, Fizz Def, Quillfish. You're a lead Life Orb Darm. Life Orb Sheer Force, really ridiculously strong in this matchup. He does not switch into Life Orb Darm, and a lot of his team is slower, so if we lead into his more passive play, that's great for us. Scarf Gengar, really powerful. I didn't expect the Staraptor to come. If it didn't, we had a very free Shadow Ball endgame. Now we gotta work for it a little bit. AV Conk, and then a Scarf Crocodile as well. So pretty similar to a lot of the team comps we've been running with our ORAS team. That being said, I think we can kind of just immediately jump right into this guy. We are going to go ahead and see our Darm lead into the Charizard. Like I said, we were pretty darn bulky. We could live a neutral Earthquake from this thing. We EV'd for pretty much everything in this scenario, and I can just go ahead and click a Life Orb Rock Slide. It might not kill, but if you look at my team, you look at Zard X, I don't actually have great consistent counterplay. There's a lot of sets that can take advantage of Quillfish, especially sub. So getting off this damage is great for me. He ends up being a Will-O-Wisp variant, so Willowing probably on a predicted physically defensive Crocodile. That's great for me, as I am just going to Rock Slide, get a lucky crit and KO this thing. Now, if this thing was not bulky Zard, if it was offensive Zard, it did pretty much always die to Rock Slide. He was not. He did not die to this. I'd like to keep that clear. He did not die to this. I got lucky, got the crit. Very lucky on my end. Immediately able to pick a KO. I also do not reveal if I'm Choice Band or not. Another really important bit of information. As I do knock out this Zard, he could think I'm CB and got a really high roll. Empo's gonna come out. This is a great turn for me. I just attack into this thing, do a ridiculous amount of damage, and depending on how bulky it is, we're in a great spot. Also, the only fairy resist left for our Gardevoir, and everything else in his team just dies. Nothing kills us outside of Banded Raptor. That's potentially not good for him. And again, if I'm Scarf and got the crit, same thing, he doesn't have that information yet. So it's really important to understand why that crit was not only unfortunate since it killed Zard, it gave him very little knowledge about what my Darm could possibly be. This next turn, I am going to go ahead and click Earthquake. I don't get the KO. This was a very stupid play on my end. Very dumb. I didn't take the time to calc. I just said, super effective button. Earthquake does lots. It does do lots. It killed a lot of Empoleon variants. I believe I got a lower roll on that. I don't know if it was roll to kill, to be honest with you. I don't remember. Regardless, based on that damage, Flare Blitz always killed. Flare Blitz always does more damage because it is sheer force boosted and ridiculously strong into a neutral target. So I should have always Flare Blitz on this turn, and I wouldn't have to have, worried about, not getting the roll there. Obviously, I was in a great position. He didn't know my set. Clicking that Life Orb Flare Blitz would have net me 2 KOs on lead, which would have put me in an incredible position. Unfortunately, he's going to get up rocks right here. Not great. I don't have removal, but in my head, I'm like, okay, it's fine, whatever. I'll just kill it the next turn. Just click Flare Blitz. We're still good to go, right? We're still in an okay position. Unfortunately, it is Custap Berry, so I get super punished for not calking, and that's 100% on me. Or not slowing down. It's playoffs, we're a little bit elevated emotion-wise, so I just didn't make a smart play and fortunately got punished. This is going to allow me to get in my Gardevoir, though. I don't have to protect or anything like that. I know I'm faster. I get off a Hyper Voice. Down goes Empoleon. It's great for me. Down it goes. So Raptor's going to come out. This pretty much forces a KO on my team. Qwilfish can be used to just basically pivot into this, get some Brave Bird plus Rocky Helmet recoil, and deal with it accordingly. Out comes said Qwilfish. Unfortunately, we are just going to go ahead and get crit and die. Now, I don't remember this off the top of my head. Now, I know it needed a crit to kill me, I believe. I don't think Bandit even killed me because it would then just be neutral. So that would have forced either another Brave Bird or allowed me to get a Spike potentially and put myself in a good position. Unfortunate, but not the end of the world. Gengar is going to be my only means of revenging this from this point. I also can go into Conk, but Gengar is pretty darn strong offensively. Sludge Bomb does not have any resist on this team, whereas Mach Punch does. So I am just going to go ahead and go into Gengar and click Sludge Bomb on the incoming Cresselia, as is the only switch into Gengar. So we're still in a good spot, right? Sludge Bomb still is 32. If we get a Poison, we're also in a great spot on this thing. Fortunately, we don't get it right here, right? A little unfortunate. We go into our Gardevoir. We were Encore. We were Calm Mind, Encore, Focus Blast, Hyper Voice. Go into this thing because this exerts crazy pressure. I just click Hyper Voice. If it tries to set up anything, I just click Encore afterwards, and we're still in a great position. Ice Beam is going to come out from this Cresselia, expecting my Crook. Doesn't do that much damage. And the ting 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 noise comes out. And unfortunately, we get frozen. This is very, very consequential because this guard was just a KO or the Sash on this Alakazam. If you want to go to the Sash on this Alakazam, that opens up Scarf Crook Endgame. Scarf Crook Endgame looks incredible if this thing gets a Sash. If it wants to leave in the Cresselia, Scarf Sludge Bomb Endgame looks incredible. We also have Conk to break Sash guaranteed too. Basically, this took us from a advantageous position to a terrible position as we do not unthaw this turn. Shadow Ball is going to outspeed, not take me out. Spit Out Storm obviously doesn't matter. Unfortunately, we don't thaw this turn either, and we are just going to go down. So we lose our Gardevoir for basically nothing, which is a really strong tool in this matchup. We have to go Crocodile this next turn. We're going to click Knockoff, bring this thing down to Sash, which would have already been broken. Grass Knot does not kill us, which is obviously nice. We're going to knock off, pick this thing off right here. Going to get a Moxie Boost, which is obviously really nice. Scarf Staraptor comes out, confirming this is Scarf Staraptor, right? Really unfortunate. We need to keep our Scarf Crook alive because it's one of our only ways of putting consistent damage into this Cresselia, which would have taken a ton of damage. Brave Bird is just going to kill us. And again, if we didn't get crit on our Qwilfish, this thing would pretty much die to this recoil if it elected to kill our Qwilfish turns prior or, something of the sort. Obviously, we can't say guarantee that would have happened, but yeah, this thing would have been dead, right? Out comes our Staraptor. Unfortunately, I'm in my Gengar right here, and I am forced into a position where I have to Sludge Bomb if I stay in. Hindsight, again, this game happened a month and a half ago. I think my only play here was to double into Crook and get a knockoff. Because if the Cresselia comes out in the Sludge Bomb, which you'll see it does, I'm in a checkmate, I lose position. I just don't win from that spot. If I can kill the Cresselia or force a knockoff into something, my Sludge Bomb endgame is a lot more viable and free. So we're going to see Cresselia pivot right out. I do just Sludge Bomb. It ends up being Citrus Berry. We don't get the poison, which doesn't really matter. We also pop this thing's item, which makes our knock do even less. He makes a pretty calculated read, just goes for the Ice Beam. It didn't really matter if I stayed in or not, because it's not like Sludge Bomb is doing any damage. And from this position, there just, unfortunately, is no out. Cresselia has Max Speed F and a Ghost Resist, and we are going to go ahead and drop this one to the Cresselia. It is a 3-0. I think I made some silly mistakes in this game with my Darm lead, but we also got really unfortunate with our guard, which was still in a phenomenal position, and even got unlucky with the Qwilfish. Freeze is not a very balanced mechanic, and shit just happens, right? So, game 2, I decided to pick USUM. I know we just played him in USUM the week prior, but I felt much more confident in my USUM playing ability than my ADV playing ability. I built a completely new team for the USUM matchup as well. We're not reusing the same team. We're not bringing hyper offense this time. And I think we can definitely still do it. So that being said, we'll jump into it. We have an SD Scolipede in this game. We have a rocking Komodo with Dragonium Z. We have an offensive Yachi Berry Zapdos, which is really powerful in this matchup with Heat Wave, Thunderbolt, Hidden Power, Ice. Same Decidueye set, pretty similar. I believe we are also a very similar Diancie set. I don't think we're Rock Polish Calm Mind. I believe we are just Rock Polish 3, which is still very strong here. And then Scarf Mamoswine is a strong revenging tool into things like Weavile if we do end up getting up our rocks and hazards and things of the sort. We're also Beginnium Z on our Scolipede, so we're double Z in this battle, depending on like what the scenario is and when we want to click our Z move. Alrighty, that being said, let's jump into game 2. We have our Komodo lead into the Ferrothorn, which is great for me. I do Flamethrower, as last time he really just kind of elected to sack his guy immediately, which, or like elected to stay in with his Ferrothorn on my Komodo. So I figured, hey, if he wants to do that again, I'm going to get my damage off and put myself in a good position later, punish some hazards. But we do see a pivot out into the Mew, as I do get up my rocks this time. Nothing this thing did from full super threat me outside of Shattered Psyche, which burning that isn't the worst thing in the world. Plus, I don't think you want to burn on my Komodo being out. I do make a pivot out into Mamoswine, as I know I can live any like +2 neutral hit besides a Z move. Don't think you want to pop that on the Komodo that you already killed with Psychic. Thankfully we live, and because we're Scarf in this matchup, we do lose our Scarf into this team, which is tough, but our Scarfer. But this Earthquake is going to allow us to go into our Diancie afterwards and revenge it with a Moonblast, which is really, really important, because otherwise we didn't have anything that killed this. Ferrothorn is going to be able to pivot out, unfortunately, as I do Moonblast. I can't be Psycho and Hidden Power Fire there, or I just kind of lose. This is pretty specially defensive, so we don't kill with Hidden Power Fire necessarily, as Gliscor is going to pivot out on my Zapdos switch. This is fine. I'm assuming scouting for Hidden Power Fire and then threatening me out with an Earthquake the turn afterwards, but my Zapdos covered both. It covered this Ferrothorn staying in and Power Whipping or Gyro Balling, and it covered this Gliscor pivot as well as a Diancie pivot. Really any pivot other than Weavile, which, yeah, go into Weavile, I dare you. Right, so that's obviously very nice, and again, we're at least speed time with me when we live ahead from it, so we'd kill it after rocks with Thunderbolt offensively. But we're just going to be able to throw off a nice and strong Hidden Power Ice into this thing. It does show to be pretty darn bulky, so it is going to live that and get up its rocks, but Zapdos is still at full and exerting crazy, crazy offensive pressure. Gonna go ahead and knock this thing out as Weavile comes out, and this is wonderful for me. I mean, absolutely wonderful. We are Yachi Berry. We live banded from full, whether it be Crash or Knockoff. We just Heat Wave into this thing, and we are chilling. We are looking so, so much better into this matchup. I am going to go ahead and just throw off said Heat Wave. Ice Glow Crash pops. We eat our Yachi, and we get flinched. Tough one. We lose our Zapdos, which, by the way, looked incredible here offensively. I know I'm risking a flinch by staying in, but I'd like you to point out my ice resist in this matchup. We don't have Heatran, right? So Diancie is going to come out right here. I know I at least live one hit from this thing. I can at least revenge it. We're gonna get flinched again, unfortunately. Not what you see. It's kind of doing the spam the keyboard thing on the side there. Not much we can do in that regard. We do dodge this next Ice Skull Crash, which is almost like salt in the wound, to be honest with you. Because if I'm gonna dodge it, at least let me dodge it on one of the guys I still need in this game. I lose this game from this point pretty much. Like, there's not really much of an out unless he plays really, really bad. Maybe Swords Dancing on this turn, punishing him missing was the play. I'm not sure. We do at least kill the Weavile, which is really nice. Ferrothorn is going to be the pivot of choice. I'm going to make the play out into my Komodo, as it does deal with this Ferrothorn pretty comfortably. We're not bulletproof in this game. I forget what we were. Maybe soundproof. Probably should have been bulletproof, to be honest with you. Soundproof for the Altaria that beats you. It's dumb anyways. Make a really aggressive play here. I'm going to Dragonium Z. It covers the Mew coming in, like it just kills it, which is nice, I guess. But more importantly, it covers the Altaria pivot before it Mega Evolves, because obviously once it Megas, our set's actually walled this week. But if it pivots in on our Flamethrower and tries to Mega, you can just Devastating Drake it, kill it. So we're trying our best to claw back in this game. Maybe there's a Decidueye endgame. It's going to be hard, but maybe there's an endgame, right? Mew is going to be the pivot of choice. We do just die to this thing, so I'm going to pivot out because this is my best way of breaking down the Ferrothorn. Roost is going to pop as I go into my Decidueye. Psychonium Z Genesis Super Zone Nova is going to pop, do a ton of damage, set up the Psychic terrain as I do 59, and unfortunately we are going to die to the Psychic subsequently. Again, unfortunate. Not the end of the world, though. Mew is going to pivot out here into the Ferrothorn as I believe I do just Mega Horn. Get a nice little crit, 45%. We take those. Maybe, again, SDing on a choke would have been the play. Then critting afterwards would have been cool. As Kaz says, crit Mega Horn, so lucky in the chat. I forgot he did that. We get out into our Komodo. We're just going to click Flamethrower, knock this thing out. Unfortunately, there's no position in which we win with our Scolipede unless he threw and went into Suicune and let me, like, get off a Draco or something like that. Then we could crit through. unfortunately, we are just going to go ahead and Poison Jab, kill this Mew, and we just don't have the gas left in the tank to beat the last monster we could. So, I mean, despite the double flinch into our team, we missed the last Mega Horn to Salt the Wind. We were able to bring this down to a 1-0. I'm not super upset with how I played this. I think I had a great season, 7-2. Got pretty unlucky in both of my playoff games. Again, I think I could have played the ORAS game better, especially that lead sequence with Flare Blitzing instead of Earthquaking and clicking super effective button. But I'm pretty happy with how I played this season in general. And shit just got cut short due to some unluckiness. It happens, right? It's Pokemon. I got lucky in some games too, right? Got lucky in plenty of games, like in game against Rob and things of the sort. So that's going to be our Hoenn Khlazic run for season number 5. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know what your favorite team of ours was. And again, check out the Emerald Open. I'll link the server. It's going to be a Gen 3 Draft League tournament. Join it. Play some ADV with me. I'll be playing. So, yeah, appreciate y'all. See you guys next time. Later.